Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. The SNP is always going on about the referendum. It's a referendum this, referendum that. They want another referendum, and then another, and then another. And so it's very, very strange that they are now announced a policy document that fundamentally changes the constitution of Scotland, that puts everyone in Scotland in a position that not necessarily all of them want to be in. Is a major, major decision that really ought to have a referendum, and their plans are to not have a referendum. Their plans are to impose it simply because they want to, whether you like it or not. And we're talking about EU membership. If ever Scotland becomes independent, the SNP plan to apply for and obtain EU membership, regardless of whether the people of Scotland want it or not. Do you want to be an independent nation, or do you want to be controlled by an unelected cabal in Brussels? That's the basic question that's being asked. And you're not even going to be asked it. You're going to be told that we have given up our independence. We've been an independent Scotland for about a year, and now we are subjecting you all to rule by diktat from an unelected bunch in Brussels. Well done, Scotland. If that happens, there's no going back. You are truly, truly finished. Let's have a look at this article to see why they are so scared to offer a referendum. Although we all know why, don't we? Here goes. So we have to ask why he doesn't want a referendum. Well, he knows he'd probably lose. So the best thing to do is to say he'll accept the result of the 2016 Euro referendum, and say that the will of Scotland is to remain in the EU, and as they're out, he'll have to rejoin. So he says the Scottish people voted and they want to join the EU. And isn't it funny how he's going to accept that referendum result and yet won't accept the 2014 result, where Scotland said, no, we don't want to be independent. That's a strangely hypocritical position to be in. And then, of course, what happens once he gets independence? And he goes, okay, right, we're going to go into the EU. Because the will of the people is that. Well, hang on. The will of the people was that when they were part of the UK. Now they're independent. Now there's a border. That means if they join the EU, that border's got to become a very hard border. In fact, there's got to be customs checks. There's got to be passport checks because Britain isn't part of Schengen. So if you want to come across to England, you've got to stand in queue, get your passport stamped. And if you want to sell stuff into England, it's got to go through customs checks. And of course, there'll be tariffs and payments and taxes. All of a sudden, stuff becomes very expensive when it's coming from Scotland, so less of it will be bought. Also, as part of the EU, you aren't making your own laws. There's an unelected cabal called the Commission. They invent the laws and then impose them. Now, of course, you have the farce of the EU Parliament. That's not there to create laws. That is only there to rubber stamp the decisions of the Commission. And so the Commission will create a law. You, as a Scottish citizen, will have to obey that law. And you have no means of democratically overturning that decision because you can't vote those commissioners out because there is no democracy there. They are unaccountable. Isn't that great? And so you have your independence. Woohoo, you're an independent country. And as soon as he can, he gets you in and you're ruled by diktat from Brussels with no mandate, with no accountability and with zero democracy. Is that independence? That doesn't sound like independence. That sounds like you're a vassal state of a large international conglomeration. It's not even a country. And what are you going to do when it says you need to send 10,000 troops into Kosovo or wherever? We got the EU task force. We need every country to give us 10,000 troops. Good luck. Good luck, Scotland. What if you don't particularly want to go to war, but you're told you have to because the EU army needs to fight a war? It's all very strange, isn't it, that he would do that? And of course, this is the man who also said that Scotland is horrendously white. It's 98% white. It's far too white. Too many white faces, he said. This is Humza Yousaf now. These are not my words. They're his. He says there's too many white faces. And so he's throwing the borders open to immigration so he can fill Scotland with people who look like him. They're low skilled, they're unemployable, they don't have necessary abilities to make their own way. They'll be reliant upon the state, which means reliant upon the Scottish taxpayer. Hundreds of thousands of mouths, hungry, bringing with them disease, crime, problems. We've seen what happens in high mass immigration areas. There's always problems. He wants to fill Scotland like that, because there's too many white faces, because he is quite literally a racist. And so that is the future of Scotland should you ever get independence. And it's no wonder, of course, he refuses to have a referendum, because he knows, quite simply, he'd lose. Now we'll look at this article quickly. The SNP to deny democracy as new Exit Paper confirms no referendum on EU membership. He is going to decide that you want to be in the EU. Jamie Hebbard has arrogantly spoken of when Scotland breaks away from the UK, ignoring the wishes of the majority of Scots. He's going to be a very disappointed man. The SNP has effectively confirmed it will seek to join the European Union without asking the people in the event of the UK breaking up. The nationalist government published its latest Exit Paper on Thursday morning, and there's another thing. They've been told that they have no competence to deal with this. It is a reserved matter. The Supreme Court told them that they shouldn't be doing it. Now ministers are saying they shouldn't be wasting money on it. They're still wasting money on it, despite an inquiry going on to see if this money is being spent legally, and if not, the SNP themselves will have to repay everything. It's starting to look very troublesome for the SNP. And yet arrogantly they keep spending public money on party political matters because the party can't afford to spend it. So they're getting you, the taxpayers, who are predominantly against independence, to keep spending money on this independence propaganda. It's like Joseph Goebbels, isn't he? Sitting there pushing for his Fourth Reich in Scotland, which is quite similar to what it actually is, of course, because they are based upon the National Socialist model. And indeed, as we've seen in past videos, they like to go to, dinners and attend speeches of people who like to thank the Waffen-SS for all the hard work they did during the war. I kid you not. They are pro the bad guys. Anyway, in another blow to democracy, the paper makes no mention of a referendum for Scotland to join the EU, instead suggesting the government would seek to rejoin the EU as soon as possible, regardless of what the country wants. While most voters in Scotland voted for Britain to remain in the EU in 2016, an independent Scotland as a new member would have a very different relationship with the body, while concerns have been raised about the impact of our relations with the rest of the UK. Well, you can kiss goodbye to all that. That would be a major thing. You would have to erect a full Scottish border with guards and passport control and customs control. No problem. You'd have to do it. It's the rules of joining the EU. Since the European Community became the EU in 1993, 17 countries have held referendums on joining the EU. Since then, the bloc has expanded from 12 to 27 countries. But Mr. Hebbard makes no mention of an EU referendum in his foreword. Instead, he states, when Scotland becomes an independent country, he means if, it will create a law in a new legal status of nationality, that of a Scottish citizen, to complement our existing strong national identity as people of Scotland. EU membership is stated throughout the piece, but the SNP government has so far refused to release advice on how long it would take to join the body, somewhere between 20 and never years. In an attempt to appease unionists, the Nats claim someone could hold dual and British citizenship, although this will need backing from the UK government, who will be not inclined to allow it. Why would they? Why would they allow it? Why would they allow that? There's no obligation. It also states Scottish passport holders will be able to request help from Scottish embassies and consulates, but makes no mention of how much it would cost to set up such a diplomatic system. Hundreds of millions of pounds to set up, and maybe £100 million a year to run. Who's doing all the work? You're building up a big country with a big state. You've got to employ your diplomats, your backup staff for your consulates, all the typist secretaries, all the admin staff for 204 consulates all across the world. Okay, so you take all those people, you put them out. You've got to set up your own tax system, which you haven't got. That's going to employ people. You're going to have to set up your own defence system. That's going to employ people. All these different branches of government, all these different branches of the establishment, all have to be set up, and they have to be paid for, and they have to have all these people employed to do them, at public expense, mind. And so you're going to have to tax people to pay for them. But also, you're running out of people. 5 million people in the country. A third of them are at school. Well, no, it's a quarter at school. 20% at school, isn't it? It's 20% at school. 20% retired. That only leaves, 3 million people? Now, you've got to take the people who are ill, who are stupid, that can't be doing these high-end jobs. You've got to take out the people that are already their own job. They don't want to do it. You've got all this. Where are you drawing the people from? You haven't got the people, and you certainly haven't got the money. So it's an embarrassing situation to be in, that you are so small and unable to do it because you're just morons. The people running Scotland are absolute morons, and he is the moron in chief, isn't he? He thinks he can run a country. He can't even run a whelk stall. And when you consider, and we did the video yesterday, when you consider that 55% of SNP voters don't want full independence, he's living in a land of delusion. And he's having a good time. But he's having a good time at your expense. Anyway, I'm going to come up and round off. I heard someone once say, I've got half a mind to join the SNP. Well, I thought, yep, that's the entry obligation, isn't it? It's about that level. But they're just arrogant. They need to go. They're just arrogant. This when, not if. And it's a joke. We did the video yesterday. 55% of his own SNP supporters don't want full independence because they look around at Scotland now, and don't forget, you're protected with some Westminster oversight. Imagine Scotland without it. It would be third world, literally. And of course, you'd all be sitting there under the benevolent dictatorship of Vice Marshal Yousaf, sitting there turning Scotland into the Fourth Reich, because of course that's where they come from, isn't it? And he'd be filling the place with new people who look just like him, because as I said, he is the most racist person you'll meet. He's very, very anti-white. He's saying Scotland is filled with too many white faces, and it'll be his job to change that. So welcome to his new paradise. He needs to go. He is an embarrassment, and of course the people who support him are also pretty dim, aren't they? All of them. But it is that conceit of when, not if. Never going to happen. Never in a million years. And who's going to pay for it? Not me. Anyway, I'll stop there. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, do please hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, and remember, you can vote him out. And you bloody well need to. Bye.